May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. Growing up, my Saturday mornings were all about cartoons on TV. Looney Tune cartoons, the ones created in the 1950s, were my favorites, particularly the one about Wile E. Coyote, pervasive chaser of the Roadrunner, or as my French-speaking husband calls him, Beep Beep. You know these characters, right? I see some heads nodding. Well, if you don't, let me fill you in. Wile E. Coyote is constantly trying to catch the speedy Roadrunner, and each short episode has him opening a box of a new crazy Acme invention to help him finally catch the Roadrunner. Of course, Wile E. Coyote never succeeds. He invariably runs off a cliff, pauses while gravity catches up, and then he falls, ending with a poof of dust. Seconds later, a new episode begins with him as good as new and trying again. Maybe we get enjoyment from it because of the repetition, the ritual. Wile E. Coyote, despite his failures, never dies and will get up and keep trying. Maybe it's funny because of how belief and unbelief governs reality. I thought about Wile E. Coyote as I contemplated not-so-wily Peter in today's gospel. Peter both trusts God and he doubts. While Peter and Wile E. Coyote are both subject to gravity, one is real while the other isn't. One learns while the other does not. And Wile E. Coyote never experiences Jesus reaching out his saving hand. We are in the realm of faith. So let's explore together today's gospel and what it shares about God's presence, fear, faith, and doubt. Today's gospel starts with Jesus sending his disciples in a boat on ahead of him, while Jesus then spent time alone in unhurried prayer. This is the first time in Matthew's gospel that the disciples were sent out before Jesus, without Jesus. Now, this appears to be in direct conflict with one of the names given to Jesus at his birth and the name of our church, right? Emmanuel, God is with us. While the disciples were in the boat, a storm whipped up suddenly on the Sea of Galilee. Now, you probably already know this, but this infamous Sea of Galilee is in fact a lake. And the lake is about a third of the size of Lac Léman, which is right here. And it's only 43 meters deep. The Sea of Galilee is known for its sudden and violent storms sweeping down from the mountains. Now, we don't have anything like that in Switzerland, do we? The Joran wind does the same thing. All of the sudden, it whips down onto the lake, and sailors are understandably very stressed. I can imagine that this storm had the disciples worried, especially the fishermen. They knew these storms. And they had experienced this once before. If you remember, earlier in Matthew, you know the story, Jesus was sleeping in the boat while the storm raged all around. Before Jesus woke, actually the disciples woke Jesus, and Jesus calmed the storm. But this time, Jesus is not there. We, as the church and individuals, can find ourselves sent out into the world, sometimes feeling like we are without Jesus, who promised to be there with us always. And there are storms. The church has 2,000 years of storms behind us. Martyrdom, infighting, supporting injustice such as slavery and apartheid, sexual abuse scandals, secularization, and more. We may well feel at times that God is not with us, as Georg highlighted in his sermon last week, and that we are in the midst of the storm of our life on our own. As the disciples were in the boat far from shore, in a storm, fear came creeping in. And it was their fear that kept them from seeing Jesus, who walked toward them. Oh, they saw something all right, but they were incapable of seeing him for who he is. Their brains registered a ghost or an apparition when they saw Jesus. So they only thought they were scared before. I'll tell you right now, their fear went up. How this can so easily happen to us, and how it changes our own ability to see what's right in front of us, even when it is a saving hand. Throughout the Old Testament, we hear about God in relationship to the sea. God who separated the waters, gathering the seas and establishing boundaries during creation. God who caused the Red Sea to part as the Hebrews escaped the Egyptian army. And here in today's gospel, Christ also masters the waters, walking upon them to reach his disciples. It was not until Jesus reached the boat and said to them, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid," that their fear could begin to subside. Then they could see him. I imagine their relief. They were not alone. We are not alone in the storm of life. Emmanuel, God is with us, is there. It is I identifies him as their beloved Jesus, but it also identifies him with one of the many names of God, I am. Moses asked God what his name was when Moses encountered God at the burning bush, and God said, I am that I am. Up until this point in Matthew, only the devil and the demons have recognized Jesus as the Son of God. But that day, it was also the disciples who proclaimed him as the Son of God. But before the scales could fully come off their eyes, we have the exchange between Jesus and Peter. Peter said to Jesus, "If you are really God, tell me to come out on the water and walk with you." Prove it to me, is what he's saying. Clearly, Peter did not get the message about not putting the Lord your God to the test. Jesus said to him, "Come." It started out well. Peter had faith. He stepped out of the boat and began walking on the water. It went well until Peter took his eyes off Jesus and noticed the storm that was still raging and the wind that was still blowing. Terrified, he began to sink. Just like Wile E. Coyote, who always goes over the edge and falls. Unlike our cartoon character, however, Peter cried out a prayer from the heart, "Lord, save me." And Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him. "Lord, save me." And Christ immediately reached out his hand and caught him. Both Wile E. Coyote and Peter are subject to the laws of physics. We laugh when Wile E. Coyote falls because he never learns, he never dies, and he never seems angry for long. It doesn't mean anything. The stakes with Peter, however, are real, and they do mean something. The danger of drowning is real, the cry for help is real, and the hand reaching to help is not guaranteed by the laws of physics, but a choice by God, who is love, to reach a hand to Peter, to all of us. While we have plenty of doubt in our lives to go along with our faith, there are moments when our faith grows, imperfectly, but it does grow. This was one of those moments for Peter and the disciples. Jesus not only helped their fear subside, but they were able to see Jesus as the Son of God. The connection with our triune God may not always feel like we'd like it to, which does not mean that God is not there. Our faith will at times give way to doubt, and our doubt to faith. Our faith can also grow, thanks be to God. When we experience fear, it may diminish our ability to recognize whatever is before us, God included. And in our stormier moments of life, may God remind us that Emmanuel, God is with us, and that we don't need to be afraid, so that we can see God's outstretched hand toward us in love.